Well, good. Well, I guess it's a little after 2. It's 2:03 right now, so I think let's go ahead and get started, and others can join as they log in. So thank you all for everyone who's attended this job search webinar. We're hoping to kind of keep it informative and light and fun. And so my name is Ankur Patel. I'm one of the recruiters here at VCFO. And what I first want to start to do is just talk a little bit about us as a company. So not sure if everyone knows what we do, but we've been around since 1996, and we focus on providing consulting services within human resources, recruiting, and accounting and finance. And we kind of, we target companies that can be from startups to, 10, 20, 30 plus million in revenue, predominantly within the Austin, Dallas, Houston, and Denver markets. So, and a little bit about myself is, I've been here for about 3.5 years. I focus on the internal recruiting for VCFO and hiring for our 4 markets, and have been a recruiter now for 15 years, predominantly focusing on accounting, finance, and HR roles. And so now I'll let the rest of the team kind of introduce themselves, and we'll kind of get started.
Okay, great. So I guess we can.
You can go to the next slide if you want.
Yep, that's what I was trying to do. But, oh, there we go. So I'm Vira Trevino-Garcia, and I have been with VCFO for 5 years, and I handled the recruiting for our client positions, separate arm from the consulting services. We're not part of the consulting services. We're a separate division that is a search firm, basically, helping our clients fill positions. I've been doing recruiting for 20 years. I started when I was 10 years old. And and enjoy it. My degree is actually in accounting, and I was told at one point in time that it would be time to leave recruiting when I saw an accounting position I was interested in, and 20 years later I am still doing recruiting. So that tells you how I felt about accounting. So happy to have you here. Really glad to kind of interact in person other than on the phone like we do normally, and hope we can add some value to you.
Thank you, Vita. I'm Kelly Wells, Senior Human Resources Consultant, and I will be with VCFO going on 7 years this year. My education's in human resources. I've done it my whole entire professional career. I've gone from startups to working to Fortune 500, as well as been in charge of HR for KPMG, just to name one place I used to work at. I've also have done things from startups all the way to Fortune 500 companies, as well as having international human resources experience. I've lived overseas, and I have over 10 countries of human resources experience.
Great.
All right. So I think what we'll do on kind of our next game plan is going to be just kind of talking about these 3 kind of main areas. So what we have in store are 3 different kind of sessions we're going to talk about. We're going to spend about 15 minutes each. What we'll do is we'll kind of do our presentation and then kind of open it up to kind of Q&A at the very end of each segment. But of course, we want to make this interactive since we have a small group, so feel free to chime in at any time. But what we're going to be covering is, personal branding and kind of how to help yourself stand out from the crowd, interview prep, how to research companies, what to research, best practices for, Zoom interviews or, Skype or anything virtual these days. And then also recruiting and employment practices. That's very important. Things have changed a lot in that landscape with the COVID-19 era. So that's kind of where we are. So I'll kind of kick it off with personal branding and kind of what to do. So really, this is personal branding is all about, what can you do to set yourself apart from the current environment? So as you all know, there are a lot more applicants than jobs. So how do you set yourself apart? So what we'll talk about are, tips around writing a resume that will help kind of grab the attention of a recruiter or hiring manager, how to write a fairly simple, effective cover letter, leveraging your network, which is more important than ever in a time like this, and really fully optimizing your LinkedIn profile. I think most people have a profile, but there's certain features that you can have on it to really have it stick out and kind of give you an edge. So we'll kind of jump right in. Resume is, of course, the most important thing. So I would say the first thing to start off with is with a good executive summary. I mean, if you see this example here, it kind of almost acts like a mini cover letter, but in a more condensed 3 to 4 sentence format. So something that's very kind of action oriented. I've highlighted a section where this person listed an accomplishment, and that's always good to do because it just helps kind of draw the reader to your resume. Another key thing to do is, when you're crafting your resume, really look at that job you're applying for and look at the descriptions and skill sets and really make sure you're emphasizing the skills and experience that you have if it's similar, and highlight that early on in your resume. I think that's a great way to grab the attention of a reader and really see if you're the right fit. So, going on to the next slide is a perfect example. This is a sample resume of a CFO consultant we hired in Austin. And, if you look at the job description that I kind of put on the left here, I highlighted some of the kind of the keywords we look for and the key skills. So, looking for someone with, at least 5 years CFO experience at a couple of different places, has done, M&A, fundraising, due diligence, working with boards. So if you look at her resume and the stuff that I've highlighted, what caught my eye was, one, I could easily tell she's been a CFO for over 5 years, but what I highlighted in blue kind of caught my attention. She put a little blurb about the type of company that she worked for. So, high growth venture capital backed company, a private equity backed SaaS provider. So I could very easily tell she had a lot of the industry experience, very similar to the type of clients that we target. So that really caught my eye. And, as you read, through the rest of her resume, it was really nice, short bullet points. The first thing that caught my eye was it grew annual revenue from 1 million to 50 million, prepared performance to plan budget variance analysis for executive boards and investors, responsible for due diligence on all M&A targets, raised more than 80 million with Wall Street private equity firm. So I was quickly able to tell that, she already has 4 or 5 of the core skills that we're looking for in a CFO. So very, very active language, short, sweet, really tailored to the job, which I think is super critical. Next up is the cover letter. I think, that's kind of similar to the resume, just making sure, you have it tailored to that particular job. The honest truth is a lot of recruiters, we don't read cover letters anymore, in all honesty. I mean, we have so many applicants we're looking at, but there are times where having a cover letter is good, just because there's going to be time where a certain job requires it for you to get your resume in. So, or if you get referred to a hiring manager or a position and they require it. So, have something drafted that you can easily alter for a particular job. So what I've done here on this slide is kind of broken it down into 4 paragraphs. The first one is, how you heard about the job, and kind of if you were referred to the job. The second part is, the qualifications for your job. So, kind of selling yourself there. The third paragraph is really the meat of your cover letter and how you feel your skills can fit with this role and how you can add value right away. And then the fourth would be a closing paragraph, just kind of re-expressing the interest, and closing your resume, and would like to hear from them, basically. So just have something drafted, something that can be altered. It's just always great practice. So next up, after
There you go.
Yep, there you go. After you have your resume drafted, your cover letter, leveraging your personal network. I mean, I think now more than ever, leveraging your current network and also building out a network is more important than ever. So there's not really meetups or networking events that you can go and interact with people face to face. So LinkedIn is really the best option, right now. So there's over 600 million users on it. So a great place to connect with people. So just make sure, you're connecting with coworkers, friends, managers, and even people that aren't even in the same field of area as you, if you know them, because they might know someone that works in the same field. If you are in transition, make sure you have your resume posted on your profile. I mean, I think that's huge. And also make sure to post at the very top, you're looking for new opportunities. I think that's a very, very important thing. The next thing to do in terms of expanding your network would be, join industry groups. There are definitely a lot of different industry groups on LinkedIn that you can join, and you'll meet like-minded individuals. And, everyone at this time everyone's trying to help each other out. So great place to share your resume if you've written any blogs or, bio. Just a new way to meet new people and build that network. And really, just leverage your contacts. If you're following a company and you're looking at a particular company and you have a contact there that you have a pretty good relationship with, see if they could do like a warm intro, and it never hurts. I mean, that's really the best way to get in with a company these days is, have someone introduce you. So like, I know when a VCFO employee refers someone to me, I always pick up the phone and call them. I mean, even if I have an opening or not, just because it's a referral. So that's really the best way versus just trying to, kind of blanket apply. And then the last thing I would say from a branding perspective and building a network, hosting virtual meetings. I mean, if you're a subject matter expert in something, put together a virtual meeting that always adds value to your network. And it's great for branding. And attending meetings are great just because you get to meet new people and new faces. And so doing those things will be great. So actually, before the questions, I wanted to kind of go over the LinkedIn profile. So what I want to do, I talked about LinkedIn, but I kind of wanted to show you a profile of our managing director, Christina Silengardi, and just kind of show kind of what she's done to kind of help her profile stick out. That, it's just some basic tips. Some people might find it helpful, others, might not, but I think it would be good to point out.
Oops. I need to switch the screen. Sorry.
Mm-mm.
Oh my goodness. Is it new share? Yes. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. Can you see that?
Yep. No, thank you, Vita. So, this is our managing director who's super, super active on LinkedIn. So I just want to kind of from top to bottom, just kind of go over a few things. First thing, and this may sound elementary, make sure you have a profile picture. It sounds crazy, but you'll see some interesting pictures on LinkedIn, or some people don't even have a picture. So always have a really professional picture. I think that makes a huge difference. Under title, she's listed, she's a managing director, make sure you put that. If you are in transition, that's a great spot to put, you are looking for, a new opportunity. Under, the provided services that she's filled out, you can, actually up top a little bit, Vita. Yeah. Under the providing services, that's another area that you can fill if you are in transition, or if you are currently working right now, kind of the services you provide. And then if you scroll down, another important thing to do is fill out that about section. Christina kind of filled it out. I think it's great in terms of just really demonstrating your whole area of expertise and kind of your skill set. And it gives the reader a kind of a general idea about what your skill sets are. The next thing is activities. I mean, if you see here, Christina's super active. She has a lot of followers. She's always posting things, blogs, or anything that our VCFO team, markets out. She's always reposting it, or her network. So, if you've written anything, just be super active on the activities and just things that are value added. Scrolling down to her experience. If you look, what she's done here. So she listed her experience, but she took it a step further, and she's listed kind of what she's done in each role. So she started with us as a CFO consultant, you'll see, and she listed some responsibilities, and then she was promoted to a managing director and listed those responsibilities as well. So that's always great because recruiters are always doing keyword searches, and the more keywords you have in the content of your profile, the more likelihood of your profile getting picked up in a search. And so it's all about maximizing that so your profile is getting noticed by as many people as possible. And if you keep scrolling down, the other things are, of course, education, which, is kind of self-explanatory, make sure that's filled out. But the other thing I really want to touch base was on license, certifications, and skills. So that's another area where recruiters are always searching. I mean, here at VCFO, when we're looking for consultants, we're looking for people with PHRs and SPHRs or CPAs who have hard, tangible skills like, I've worked with like NetSuite or Epicor, or I've done an M&A deal or worked with an HRIS. So, make sure to list your hard, tangible skills because it's great from a, like I say, from a searchability perspective. And then if you, down below skills and endorsements, if you look at, recommendations, that's not really a searchable field, but they're kind of like mini references. So, if you're able to have, a prior manager or old coworker kind of write something about you, I just think that's great for your brand because it kind of tells a little bit about you as an employee and kind of who you are. And then I'll probably say the last thing below that to kind of look at are the achievements. If you like Christina, she speaks 4 different languages. She's been a part of a couple of big organizations. If you've written something that's been featured, put that on there. You know, and those are great accomplishments to be proud of. And so, and I think there was a couple things that I wanted to pull up, Vita, on your profile, like how to, like if you are looking, how to add a resume. So perfect. So if you are looking, you'll see, can you close that real quick, the add profile section?
Yep, that's what I'm trying to.
Cool, thank you. So the first thing to do, you'll see right here this window that says show recruiters you're open to job opportunities. So if you click that get started, that's a perfect spot where you can kind of put the titles the type of jobs you're looking for, the locations, and kind of who you want it to be open to. So I think that's a great area to kind of be noticed. And then if you want to attach your resume, if you go to the add profile section, go to featured, and you can upload your resume, but you can also upload anything. You could, if you've been featured in a blog, if you've written something, that's a great place to upload information on the media link. It's great to show kind of, it could be very value added. So those are some basic tips on LinkedIn that I feel hopefully can help you all. And that's kind of it for my part. Does anyone have any questions or anything like that?
Oops. Jeez.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Ankur. It's kind of a two-part question. One, what are the main things that recruiters are looking for in a resume? And do you recommend sort of customizing your resume for each position that you hire for or that you apply for?
So, in terms of what you're looking for, I would say the thing that I look at the most are, the hard tangible skills in relation to the job. So I think the number one thing to do on your resume is really highlight your skills for that job. And if there's certain certifications or software, really making sure you emphasize that. That's going to be the first thing to kind of catch a recruiter's eye. I'd also say just having like good progression, good, job stable history is something that, recruiters and hiring managers look at. And then also, certifications. If you have any, that's always great. And so I would say those are probably the big three things. Now, in terms of customizing for each job, I think you have to just kind of see, if you're applying to jobs that require completely different skills, then yes. But if you're, applying to jobs that, that are kind of very similar and you can kind of use something, then I don't think you need to do it for every single job, but I would say I think it's more based on whatever job you're applying for. And so hopefully, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Any other questions? All
Yep.
right.
Okay, well then we will move into the next section, which is job search tips and nailing the interview. And boy, has that changed. So the whole idea is you get your LinkedIn profile and your resume all tightened up with the intention of hoping to get an interview. When you get that interview, you want to prepare. And some of these things are extremely basic things that we've known for a while. So I will kind of go through those, but just touch on a high level. And then we'll talk a little bit about what has changed, including the actual interview itself. So you want to get to know the company. You visit their website, you check their press releases, you look for their mission, vision, values so that you understand kind of at the core who they are. We focus a lot of time on the job description and can I do everything in the job description? But then there's that other piece of it of how do I fit with this company? Who are they? What are their values? Get to know their clients, get to know their products, get to know their competitors. So really understand where they fit into the market. Are they the big dog and have a lot of small competitors, or are they a really small one with a lot of room for ramp up? Visit their social media accounts, their Facebook, their LinkedIn, their Twitter. LinkedIn specifically can tell you, about the other employees who work there. Visit their YouTube channel. Sometimes the CEOs of a company will put out a YouTube video, or if they have a new product, they might put out a YouTube video about it. And sometimes they don't include those on the rest of their social media profile, social media channels. And so you want to make sure to check for a YouTube channel just in case they have one. Check on Glassdoor. We all probably have been there. You know, there's the reviews about the company. There's sometimes some valuable information about the interview process. And today, if that has changed, you might have someone who has been through the interview process who says, hey, it's like 5 video interviews and then the last one is in person, or, you know, at least there's up to date, if anybody has posted reviews, information about their interview process. Getting that out ahead of time kind of gets a little bit of a comfort level going. Once you kind of know everything you can about the company, go into researching the people. Get to know the key players in the organization, the CEO, the CFO, who is running this organization, who's steering it, and what are their backgrounds? Have they been there a long time? Did they just join? Is everyone new? Kind of the landscape around the key players of the organization. LinkedIn will also give you the ability to see the former employees, so you can get a good idea of do they have a really high turnover? Are there a lot of former employees? Are there, you know, if you're applying for the CFO role, are there 6 former CFOs on LinkedIn within the last 5 years or something like that? Things that might give you some better information about what they've got going on. Then you'll want to research even further into the hiring manager and or the interviewer. Most of the time is the same. Get to know his or her background. Where did they come from to get there? Have they been there a long time? Did they just join the organization? Same kind of thing. There's a tool that I use called Crystal Knows, and just because of the flipping over, I'll show you this at the end, but it's a really helpful online tool that will give you an ability to see that person's background or that person's personality, and then it gives you some tips on how to interact with them. Are they a very, you know, short and to the point kind of person, or are they a much more casual conversation kind of person? And you know, it'll take your personality and their personality and give you really helpful information on how the two of you should interact. Like, for instance, Kelly, if I pulled up Kelly's resume, and again, profile, and I'll show you this in just a minute. It says that Kelly is a super casual, easygoing conversation person. It's the same thing about me. And then it gives a warning. The two of you could get off track pretty quickly. So you have to have an agenda in order to stay on track. So there's a free version to it. Of course, there's a paid version that has even more information, but the free version is enough to be super helpful. There's also a LinkedIn add-in. So you can be on the person's LinkedIn profile and then just click the Crystal Knows, and it pulls up their profile right there on the side for you. I'll pull that up in just a minute. So once you've gotten to know the company and the people, you want to, you know, the elephant in the room is we're all sitting at home right now. And so you want to ask yourself and research what impact COVID has had on this organization. Have they had to lay off a lot of people? Has their business drastically reduced? Have they ramped up unexpectedly? Are they like 10 times over in their production all of a sudden because now something about their product or service is something that can service the current environment? So you'll want to get to know that, research, and then ask yourself, how do I fit into that? You know, how can I add value to their current situation? If they are on an extremely fast ramp up, when have you been in a company where you grew really fast? How did you add value there? What was your role? And what were the takeaways from what you learned in that situation? You probably want to, you know, flip over to the side of the CEO and ask yourself, what keeps him or her up at night? What would be bothering me if I was the CFO or the CEO right now? And then again, how do I help alleviate that? Where can I come in to add value to that? You know, the one thing that is the only thing that's expected now is the unexpected. And so you want to be able to to look back into your past and ask yourself, where have I dealt with a lot of ambiguity? Where was I in, we've never been in this situation, so you can't say, well, the last time there was a pandemic. I mean, but we can say, I worked at a company that had a really uncertain future. And here is, as the CFO, how I helped do the forecasting, understanding that everything was unknown in the future because of X situation. There was a lot of ambiguity around it because, you know, our manufacturing was in South America and South America was in turmoil or whatever it was. But there was a lot of question. We didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how to predict tomorrow. How did you deal with that? So again, it won't be an exact situation to what we have going on today, but you can still demonstrate the ability to work in an unexpected circumstance environment. So one of the other things that that this current situation has done. In recruiting, we were, you know, tipping our toe into the market with video interviewing. We were just getting to know it. Some of the applicant tracking systems, including ours, have a feature to them to be able to do video interviews, but we were getting all kinds of resistance from our clients. They still want them to park at the visitor spot and come in and talk to me in person, shake my hand. I want to know if he has a firm handshake or not, you know, that kind of stuff. And so this, and you know, as recruiters, we were saying, this really works, guys. I mean, we should try it, at least for the first part of the process. This put us in fast forward all the way to everybody accepted it, like it or not. We're doing video interviewing now. We do still have clients who are having their candidates come in at least for the final interview, you know, doing the social distancing and all that stuff. But for the most part, everyone is doing video interviewing right now, and it's new to everyone. So to prepare for a video interview, you want to make sure that you make yourself familiar with the technology. There's WebEx, there's Skype, there's Zoom, there's Google, there's so many different ones. Each one has its own feature. Each one has its own setup. Some of them you just hop on and can get going right there. You just join the meeting and you're in. Others you need to set up a profile. Others you might need to download something onto your computer in order to have the ability to join the meeting. And so get yourself familiar with that particular technology that you'll be, or that they will be using. And it will, you know, unfortunately might be different with each company you interview with, but get yourself familiar with it. Learn the ins and outs of it, practice with it. Check your microphone, check your internet quality. Sometimes you might sit in one part of the house that has unstable internet, and then all of a sudden you're grainy, or they only hear every third word. So you want to make sure that you are in a place that has good, strong streaming, and or you can, you know, have a good quality video going across and coming across to them. The camera, it is, everyone I know, it's so tempting to look down either at your own picture or what you've got on the screen. And so we have to kind of force ourselves to remember to look at the camera, because that's where you're making eye contact. I struggle with it myself. It's new to everyone. So, but look at the camera, you're making eye contact with them. Give them some grace, because they may not do it. Set yourself up in a situation, in a room that you can eliminate distractions. It's a difficult situation because this is a peek into your personal life, and we're still trying to project the professional side in this interview, but you're at home, and so your dog might come in, or your child, or, you know, there might be someone, the lawn guy working outside, or putting in a new air conditioner, or whatever it is, but you want to eliminate those distractions. Be cognizant ahead of time of anything that would come across as a distraction. You want to adjust the lighting. Sometimes if you sit with your back to a window, it will give your face a whole lot of shadows, and it's really hard to gauge the visual cues for them when your face is completely shadowed over. So practice with someone. Get into a position where you've got lots of good light hitting on your face. The camera has a good angle. Sometimes we tend to have the our computers on the desk or table, and it may be low and it's pointed up at us, and it's not the best angle because they're looking at your chin and they might be looking at the ceiling in your room. So play with that. Find something that is complementary. There's actually some cool little features, I guess, on some of them, like Zoom. You can actually go into the settings on Zoom and kind of filter out your picture a little bit to where it just softens the look, takes a little bit of the quarantine look off of us. So make yourself familiar with those. Again, you're in your home environment, and so the tendency is to be comfortable and casual and to ramble a little bit, especially if you're like me. So be concise with your answers. Still use the same approach as if you were in an interview at the office with your answers. And then you can use cheat notes. So have a copy of your resume with you in case, he says, well, what year was that you've got it right there in front of you. They don't know, but it's right there. Or if you have certain questions you want to remember to ask, you've got your cheat notes right there with you, or things you want to remember about them, or accomplishments that you've thought of ahead of time but don't want to forget. Use your cheat notes. A few final things I think would be, we're talking about, how you can add value to them today, because the situation is different. How has the pandemic affected them? And then how can you add value to them? But remember, this will pass. In my sweet mama's words, this too will pass. This too shall pass. And when it does, don't forget to balance your conversation with the post-COVID environment. And so once we are through this, then how do you add value? How do you fit into the company culture? What do you bring to the table? Taking that out of the picture. Be empathetic. This is new to everyone. The video interviewing especially is new to everyone. The interviewer you're working with may not be comfortable with technology, may not have used it very much. You may be the first time he or she is doing a video interview, and so they may not know the ins and outs of it. Understand that it's new to everybody. If there are some technology issues or it is spotty at times, extend some extra patience there. And then keep in mind too that the last few months have changed us all, and it has us all a little off balance in emotional and in every way, really. But everyone's a little bit off balance right now, and so extend that grace. The person who is interviewing you may have just laid off 400 people last week, or they may have elderly parents who are very high risk that's on their mind and really bother, it's really keeping them from being completely engaged. So extend a little bit of grace with that. Or they may have just had to do homeschooling, which is, not the most fun for everyone. So, but just extend the grace in understanding that we are all dealing with a new situation right now. And they'll extend the grace back to you, but sometimes we expect more from them because they're the interviewer and they should have it all buttoned up and ready, but they're off balance too. So keep that in mind. Let's see. Let me hop over real quick and just show you the crystal nose, because it's a really effective tool, and I think is definitely worth taking a look at. So I'm going to share this real quickly, and then we will come back to it. So this is Crystal Nose, and it's crystalnose.com. You can just hop on and person's name, and it'll give you this is on their actual website. It'll give you, a little bit about them. Are they trusting? Are they an encourager? What's their personality? So what it does basically is just goes out to the internet and pulls out your footprint, everything out there, anything and everything you've said or done, and it pulls it together. And amazingly, it is actually pretty spot on. It tells you how to work closely with her. It gives you some, what would drain her, how to have a conversation. It gives you the options. I want to meet with her. I want to call on her. I want to whatever. the other really cool thing about Crystal, aside from just their website itself, is there is a LinkedIn add-in that you can add into Chrome. And so when you're in LinkedIn, for instance, like Christina's background that we saw just a minute ago, it'll show you, it has a little section right here that says see profile. So you're going to this person's LinkedIn profile and you just click that, and all of a sudden you have their background right there. So Christina likes to prioritize, achieve, pursue her goals very methodically and independently. She's an architect. And then again, it tells you, here's Vita, and on the other side is Christina. So how do you fit in together? As far as risk tolerance and trust and things like that, where do you lie on the scale in relation to each other? It comes naturally to Christina to, she might pause a conversation to correct something that was inaccurate that you just said. And so if you can get things like this ahead of time, if you were interviewing with Christina and she stopped you in the middle of your sentence and said, well, no, that's actually not right. It wasn't 1982, it was 1983, or whatever the case may be, you're expecting this already. So it doesn't throw you off. You have a good feeling already of an understanding of who Christina is and how she operates. And then what motivates her, what stresses her. So maybe rambling stresses Christina. Okay, great to know that, because now you really want to be cognizant of being concise with your answers with her. So very good tool. I use it all the time when I'm talking to both candidates and clients. And I have found it to be extremely effective, and I'd say probably about 90% accurate. So, okay, any questions? Oops, gosh, I did it again.
I have one quick question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm wondering if you happen to have the hiring manager's name and you know who that person is, and if you can figure out their email, is it outside of protocol to email them directly with your resume and your interest in the job? Or is it really best to go straight to the recruiter because that's really the proper process?
No, it is not outside of protocol at all to go directly to them. And I think that shows an extra interest in the position. I think it gives you the opportunity to have your resume in front of them. And, again, 4 months ago, this may have been a different conversation, but today, the recruiter and the application process is a huge sea of applicants. And so if you can go straight to them and you have their email, that's absolutely the best way to go.
Thank you. That's good to know.
What about attire for the interview? Or have you heard of kind of the Skype attire, I think is the phrase? What do you think about all that?
Yeah, so it's funny because I think Scott and I just had this conversation yesterday where, I think the temptation is to dress where the camera can see. And I'll give you the same example, but don't do that. And here's why. I'll give you the example that I told Scott the other day was, I was doing an interview and I was interviewing a candidate, but I was dressed, and I had my yoga pants on because they weren't going to see anyway. And the garage door flew open and my alarm started going off. And so I had to get up and go turn off the alarm. And so now everyone on the call knew I was in yoga pants. And so it kind of ruined, you just never know. And, if you want to leave your shoes off, I guess that's okay. But for the most part, I think I would dress completely just in case. There's another probably subliminal maybe element of it as well, that when you're dressed, you feel dressed. If you've got yoga pants on or pajama pants and you only have a dress shirt on top, and there's a lot of funny memes about the Skype attire. Yes. So no, I would say no Skype attire, just dress like a regular interview.
Is there a particular platform that you think is better than the others? I guess the choice is really going to be up to who's doing the interview, but there's so many versions out there.
There are, and as a candidate, I think the best thing would be to play around with all of them, honestly, because we had one client who used WebEx, and it was the most difficult, and the candidates had a really hard time with it. I'm not sure why the client chose that platform, but they did. So what I would do is I'd create a Skype account, I'd create a Zoom account, I'd make sure you've got or create a Google Hangouts, I think it is, it may have changed, account as well, and then play with them. They all of them have their own features that make them maybe a little better, in some ways than the other, but for the most part, they're about all the same. I think now even I want to say Slack and Facebook Messenger and all of those have the same video capability as well. So there's just a whole lot of them, but in your downtime, it's not a bad idea to play with them, get to know them, make yourself familiar with them. There may be something a little bit different that one does than the other. And, in the end, they all accomplish the same thing, but you probably want to get to know.
Vita, did we lose you?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Vita was having storms. She was concerned, but I'm glad that she got her part done. So I guess I'm going to go ahead and jump on in.
But can we all get that picture of her?
Can you get a picture of her with that?
Yeah, that picture. That's the picture that's up there right now. That's what I want to come up on my phone whenever she calls from now on.
Yeah, that's why I'm just trying to see if she's on. Okay. So we're getting to my slides there. So I have a hard act to follow with both Ankur and with Vita with what they've done. So great job. What I do is going to be the boring part, having the questions. But here's my bet, where you saw where Vita had done the crystal nose. I'm going to be more of the casual approach, exactly what it says, crystal nose. And the questions, I'm not going to give the answers right off the bat. I want everybody to participate by helping answering the questions, and then I will answer it. So and if people don't answer the questions, I will start picking on people. How's that? So the first one is, can employer require me to go to an office for a face-to-face interview? Does anyone want to be able to give an answer on that one?
I would say yes, unless there was a, stay at home, stay away from the office, local rule in place.
And exactly. And Scott, you're absolutely correct on that. Does anyone else want to add something else? If not, I'll go ahead and give that answer there.
What if I'm not comfortable?
What if you're not comfortable in going to an interview? That, of course, is your prerogative if you're not comfortable to going in. But if it's part of the interview process and they say, no, we need you to be able to come in for the face-to-face interview, then unfortunately, you may be no longer a potential candidate. So the answer is with Scott, with what he said, is that after the stay-at-home order has been lifted, and that then yes, the employer can be able to ask for you to go into face-to-face, but also there's nothing wrong to making sure that the employer is not making sure they're doing their proper due diligence to making sure that the interview is truly necessary and safe. And what I mean by that is making sure that maybe the employer should look to have, is there sanitizing the interview space before or after the interviews? How about requiring the applicant and interviewers to wear face coverings and other protective equipment? And that if you are feeling sick or the interviewer is feeling sick, to make sure that it gets postponed, or to be able to do a video interview. And then also making sure that the employer mandates that the interviewers and candidates remain at least that 6 feet apart and avoid handshaking. So I know that Vita discussed that earlier, so make sure that there's no handshaking there. And then also, you know, other places, what they've also done as well too, is maybe they have set up some see-through partitions interviewing the interviewer and the applicant. Those are just a few things, but there's nothing wrong with asking, is it really necessary for me to go in for the face-to-face interview? If they say, yes, it is a necessity, then you have a decision to make. Is this a company that you want to pursue or not? Any feedback on that one? Agree, disagree? I always like to ask that question. Thoughts?
You know, I mean, I guess I agree that that's how it should be. You know, if they find it necessary, you know, such an unknown spot we're in, or unfamiliar.
Agreed, Scott. And then also, you know, my other feedback for that as well too, is if that they are that unyielding with it, you know, you've done all of your other homework. If they're that unyielding, is that someone that you want to pursue? But again, that is ultimately the person's choice, if what they want to do.
You know, and two, if the job is going to require being in the office,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's kind of, I could see it being more of a requirement.
Exactly.
Remotely, then I think you ought to be able to interview remotely.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other feedback before we go to the next question? Okay, the next question is going to be, may an employer ask COVID-19 questions during the hiring process? What do y'all think? Ooh, that's a tough one. Maybe it's a trick question.
Give examples of what kind of questions those would be?
That's what, I'm sorry, that's what, so can you repeat that, Bruce?
Could you give an example of what a question might be about COVID?
Well, it could be something that the questions could be something along these lines. Have you had COVID-19? Have you had symptoms of COVID-19? That we're going to take your temperature. Are you okay with that? Other questions could be things like that. Has anyone in your family have had COVID-19? Do you know anyone that's had COVID-19?
I'm going to say no, because that falls under HIPAA.
Okay, so that's good. Any other? Does anyone think that that's a yes?
Well, it's an interesting question just because of HIPAA. Normally, you wouldn't ask any sort of health questions, but I would think there's got to be some precautionary questions, just like going in for the interview. Are you actively sick? I don't know if there's limits on that, but it seems like they would at least need to be able to ask the questions just like you would to ensure everybody's safe. How does that work?
Yeah, and that's absolutely correct there. Any other one before we go into the details? Scott, what are you thinking?
You know, at first I was thinking, well, yeah, they probably can, but something, you know, my spidey senses are saying, no, there's got to be some reason why, because you never get asked about any other health issues. And, you know, do you have high blood pressure or, you know, 3 earlobes or anything else? And certainly can't ask about pregnancy. So I'm going to go with the no.
Okay, so it's kind of a little bit of a trick question. So there's some no and some yes. So Bruce, you're right with the HIPAA stuff. So you have to be very, very careful with things, especially if the person was going to be teleworking. So if you're interviewing a person that's going to be teleworking, what relevance does it matter, really? Because that's what the person is not going to be exposed or anything else there. So that one would be there, but then you can be able to ask some of them, especially if you're going to be going for the first question, what we asked, about coming into an office for a face-to-face interview there, because that's part of that hiring process. And so you may want to be able to say, hey, have you been, that you would recommend as an employer to ask questions that day. Have you been exposed to COVID-19? Do you have a temperature? Have you recently traveled to an area with known local spread of COVID-19? Have you come into close contact? Are you experiencing any COVID-19 symptoms identified by the CDC? And then that way you could be able to make sure for the whole interviewing. So it's kind of like a yes and no. Did that answer that question?
Yes.
Thoughts?
Yes. And no.
Yes and no. Maybe, perhaps. Okay, how about the next? Are we ready to move on to the next question then? Okay, let's move on to the next one. Can a company do temperature checks of candidates when they are meeting in person?
Sure. Why not?
And why would you why do you answer it that way?
Because I don't think that it's an infringement upon your rights as an applicant to find out whether or not you've got a temperature. Now, I would prefer it being one of those forehead temperatures versus one of the more invasive types. But yeah, I think that if it's something that's a quick drag across the forehead or even stick in the ear, see no problem.
Okay, good. Bruce, what are your thoughts? You're on mute, sorry.
Yeah, if you're doing an in-person interview, I think they have every right to take your temperature and ask those COVID questions if you're in person.
Okay, good. Anyone?
I turn around and take their temperature as well, though.
That's probably not a bad idea.
I'll show you mine if you show me yours.
Okay. So the answer is yes, it is recommended, and that especially when going in there, the employer should put in place a process to check the temperatures of candidates and interviewers when they arrive, because if you have other interviewers, to be able to put that as well too. And then postpone the interview immediately if the candidate's temperature is 100 degrees or higher. And if you only have a single interviewer, they have a fever, you'll need to postpone the interview. And if you have multiple interviewers, one registers a fever to determine whether the interview can proceed without them. That's the type of advice I give to clients all the time. Okay, I just was advised that we're getting close on time, so we won't be able to do this interactive, and this is not my style, just to sit there and do all the talking. But I have been given the directive to do so. So then the next question, can you test applicants for coronavirus? So the answer on that one, I really would love to be able to ask this, but I can't ask for everyone, is the answer is yes, you can test it only after a conditional job offer has been done. So I see that Bruce and Scott are shaking their head, yes. And only if it's a standard policy for all employees beginning in this type of job. You cannot do it that, okay, Scott, I want you to take a COVID-19, but Melinda and Bruce, you don't have to for the same job. So you need to be consistent with that. So yes, you can test it for coronavirus, again, only after a conditional offer of employment has been made. Okay, what are the companies permitted to do now that they weren't previously when it comes to hiring? Well, one of the things that we've already talked about is temperatures there. Prior to, before COVID-19 and the pandemic, is that you couldn't do the temperatures because in ordinary times under the Americans with Disabilities Act, it narrowly limits the circumstances in which employers can require medical examinations of employees, which that also includes temperature screening. We're in a different time right now, so we can do it at this time. And also it's consistent with the EEOC guidance Employers can only take an employee's temperature if doing so was job-related and consistent with business necessity. Business necessity is due to the pandemic there. Okay, let's hear what message. Looks like we're running short of time. Oh, sorry, she cut on there. So I'm going to talk. I didn't see what else Heather had said on there. Can you withdraw an offer if you need someone to start right away if that person comes down with COVID-19 after the offer has been accepted? The answer is yes, because employers may withdraw job offers to applicants who have COVID-19 or its symptoms if they need the applicant to start immediately. There's the key, start immediately. But also remember that you can withdraw a job offer at any time there. It does not matter if it's now COVID-19 or any other time there. Next question. May an employer postpone a new hire start date or withdraw a job offer because the individual is at higher risk for COVID-19, age, pregnant, etc.? Well, of course, I know if I had asked this question to everyone that you would say the answer is no, which is absolutely true. You cannot. According to the EEOC, the fact that CDC has identified those who are 65 or older or pregnant women as being at greater risk does not justify postponing the start date or withdrawing a job offer. However, an employer may choose to allow telework or discuss with these individuals if they would like to postpone the start dates. Okay, and the next question, can you not hire someone who refuses to work on site out of virus concerns? Well, the answer is yes on that one. Many job applicants wonder if their job offer is set in stone once it has been extended. The answer is no. For the most part, employers can rescind a job offer. So basically, companies can withdraw a job offer for virtually any reason except for a discriminatory one. So those were the questions I had. The next couple of slides was pretty much going through what we've already talked about for the EEOC guidance. The employer may take an applicant's temperature as part of the post-offer pre-employment medical examination. An employer may screen applicants for symptoms of COVID-19 after making a conditional job offer, which we've already discussed. An employer may delay the start date of an applicant who has COVID-19 or symptoms associated with it. An employer may withdraw a job offer, which we've already talked about that as well too. And then the last one, the last slide I had was, which was with Americans with Disabilities, the ADA, that the ADA allows employers to bar an employee's physical presence in the workplace if he or she poses a threat to others. Employers should ask for reason behind the employee's refusal or reassurance the employee if the employee is hesitant to provide this information. And taking employee's temperature is a medical examination under the ADA, which we've already talked about, because the CDC and state local health authorities have acknowledged community spread. Employers may take employees' temperature. And then any employee may ask for reasonable accommodations when the employee says she has a disability that puts him at greater risk of severe illness. So we didn't talk about that, but that's another one there. And I think that's all I had there. I don't know, do we have time for a few questions? I know we're right at 3 o'clock. If people have a few questions, we're more than happy to answer them.
I had a employment question, but it's not COVID related. So if you'd rather me maybe send you an email, I mean, it's pretty quick.
Yeah, that's what, and I'm okay with answering it now, or Scott, I'm more than happy to talk to you later too about it.
It's just, you know, when filling out an application, I know they can't say, you know, how old are you? Or, you know, what's your date of birth? How can they be, or is it allowable to say, where'd you go to high school? And what year did you graduate? You know, I mean, if I'm telling you what year I graduated, you can probably figure out.
You can back into it, correct. Yeah, I always caution employers not to do that, because what's going to happen, what could happen, it could expose them to more of a potential discriminatory way. So I always say I don't recommend putting the years that you've graduated. That should be done after an offer has been made, when you're doing like a background check there.
I answered one the other day because it said
What year
name
did
of
you
high
graduate from high school?
name and years attended. I put A&M
That just,
high school 4.
well, that is probably 20 years ago, as far as I'm concerned, 20 years ago, by asking those types of questions on applications.
Yeah. This was just like, so I just told them I went there 4 years.
Good for you.
We'll see if it follows up with anything.
They did ask years, right?
That's right. They said years.
And you answered years.
Attended. I
That's
attended
right.
4 years.
That's right.
I have a question. Are the rules for being, I think you said this, that they can't, and a company can require me to take a temperature check. Is that true in every state?
Yes,
or do I look at, okay.
There's not been, now that does not mean to say that after that there could be changes, but right now for the COVID-19, the pandemic, that yes, that is from the national level. That does not mean to say after all this is done that we start getting all these state laws that go into place. But right now, because the CDC is requiring it, now once this pandemic is over with, could the employer still take temperatures? They can't, they shouldn't, because that's against what we're not supposed to be doing, medical testing.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Very interesting stuff, Kelly.
Well, it's, I put everyone to sleep. Y'all got all the nice kudos there.
No, not at all.
Anything else? Was this helpful to everybody?
Yes, I want to thank everybody for everything they presented today. It was all quite informative and helpful.
Well, Scott, if you have any more questions, I'm sure that, I think that you already know Vita, and if you have any more questions that you need to reach out to me, more than happy to, or to Ankur.
I appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
Thanks so much for
Thank you,
coming.
everyone. Thank you, everyone. For
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Stay
Bye-bye.
healthy.
Same to you. Now, Heather, are we staying on? Follow up?
I had to remove somebody. We still had a participant in there.
Oh,
Can you-
I saw that, Etha. Well, I didn't know, because I thought that we wanted to stay on for a few